Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform for creatives. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about medium format film and just some of the benefits and reasons why you should try it, but then also some of the challenges that come with it and why it may not be the best fit for you. So this is a little kind of off the cuff, this video, but it's been inspired by some recent recurring conversations I seem to have with photographers who are new to film and are either thinking that, they have to jump up from 35 now to medium format, or they already have and are maybe having some challenges with it as well. So, I think one of the most important things with photography is just to have fun, and experimenting is usually half the fun, just trying these different things out. So I don't want to discourage anyone and say you shouldn't try out medium format, but rather just want to talk about some of the realities that come with it. Hopefully this helps point you in the right direction a little bit, or give you something to think about if medium format is something you've been wanting to try out. Anyways, let's jump into it. We'll start with some of the benefits. Okay, so number one on the list is camera affordability. And I know some of you are probably screaming at me right now because film is getting more expensive and film cameras are getting more expensive. But the reality is still, if you wanted to go and try out medium format in the digital world, you're still gonna spend a couple $1,000s minimum for a camera system, where in the film world, if you just wanted to dabble, try it out a little bit, you could go and probably pick up a pretty decent TLR for $100 if you looked around enough and you didn't buy a brand name. This rolly cord, I think I paid 160 pounds for it, which is still very cheap, and it's a 6x6 negative. So even factoring in film and scanning prices, if you wanted to try and experiment a little bit, medium format film does give you this unique opportunity to do it for substantially less than digital, and gives you access to this negative size that's quite a bit bigger than what you'd be used to with 35. Long term, yes, there's a debate for sure, film and digital, which one's gonna be more affordable if you're committing to it, obviously factoring in film and scanning prices. But for experimenting at least and just trying it out, that is definitely a benefit. Okay, number two is image quality. And this kind of ties into the last one as well. But like I said, you could go out, even if you bought this rolly cord 6x6, let's say that equals $200 US or whatever it is, you factor in the price of film and developing, a 6x6 negative has so much potential when it comes to scanning if you needed a high resolution image. Obviously it's gonna cost you more if you go to get it scanned professionally, but for the price, it does give you this unique opportunity and access to a really high image quality. And then also, beyond just resolution, with medium format, if you compare it to 35mm, you are gonna get these differences that are going to be noticeable even at a lower print size or lower image size, just smoother tones, finer grain when you're comparing similar resolutions between medium format and 35. Okay, and then number three is just camera uniqueness, just the options out there in the medium format world that don't really exist or aren't that common in the 35mm world. And this is just something that is, a lot of fun, but it also has a practical appeal to it as well, depending on how you shoot. So obviously with 35, what a lot of people are used to is an SLR or a rangefinder. In the medium format world though, you have system cameras, TLRs, old folder cameras, 6x6 folder cameras from the 50s and 60s. Obviously with cameras like this Bronica, you can put on different finders and grips, or with the RB, you have rotating backs. So there's just all of these different options that aren't really available in the 35mm world. And that can be just a lot of fun if you're kind of dabbling and trying this out. All of a sudden, there's all of these different options to kind of research and look at and try out. But also, you can end up finding something that has a bunch of different uses in one camera. So something like this Bronica, I can strip this down with a waist level finder, have a nice little compact system, or I can add on the grip and the AE finder and have something that's gonna be a little more point and shoot style if that's what I need. So definitely camera uniqueness when it comes to medium format is something that is a huge standout and is a lot of fun. Okay, so next up is talking about some of the challenges that come with medium format film, or some of the reasons why it may not be a fit for you. There's some obvious things like it being more expensive than 35 because you have less frames. I'm not gonna focus on those today. I more so just wanna talk about some things that revolve around like the actual usage and the production process of working with medium format versus 35 millimeter. And none of these are necessarily bad things. They're just things that are kind of important to keep in mind because they might not just be a good fit for how you work. Okay, so first up is a change in the composition process. So, you know, with 35, if that's what you've shot, especially if you came from digital, you're gonna be used to like a 3:2 aspect ratio. And there is this like learning curve and this challenge that comes when you go to, you know, even something like 6:4:5, which is gonna be a little more narrow. The 4:3 frame is gonna be a little more narrow than 3:2. But obviously you go to 6:6, it's square. I don't have a 6:7 camera here right now, but with 6:7, obviously it's even more narrow than 6:4:5. And I think it's easy to assume you can just, you know, jump into medium format from 35, say if you went from 35 to 6:7, and expect that you're gonna be able to work exactly the same way. But there is this challenge in terms of composition and the way you compose, and even lens choices and your preferred field of view and things like that. All of that is gonna take some time to almost like relearn a little bit. So I would say it's important to keep that in mind and give yourself time, because it really will just take time to see if it's something you adjust to and learn what aspect ratio works best for you. But now I just need to take a second to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which, as you all know, is Squarespace. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about Squarespace is just how flexible and easy to use it is. So I have access to a wide range of templates. I can build something like I did for my podcast, the contact sheet, and then I can also use it to build a really simple and clean photography website that has galleries that you can update and reorder and reorganize. So check out squarespace.com today for your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, you can use the link squarespace.com/Kyle McDougall to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Okay, back to the video. So number 2 is less images, and that sometimes equals less spontaneity. And this is a good thing and also a bad thing. So if you're shooting 35, let's say you load up a 36 exposure roll of film. I find, for me personally, there's like this level of like experimentation and like curiosity and spontaneity that comes with that, where like I may make an image even if I'm not sure if I like it that much, because I have 36 images on the roll. I'm not as worried about each individual one. And a lot of times with that, you know, these images that I make where I just tried something out, I end up finding something or making something that I'm really happy with. But on the flip side, I find with something like 6:7, where you have 10 images per roll, there can be this way of working where I'm like almost overthinking every single image because I want to make everyone count. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, having this very thoughtful approach, but there can be this point where you overthink it a little bit too much and you might move on from something that would have been really good if you just shot it anyway. So just something to keep in mind. 6:4:5 is kind of a nice happy medium, 16 images per roll or 15 depending on the camera. Obviously it's not 36, but that brings back, I find, a little bit of this experimentation. Okay, number 3 is a change in process. And like I was saying with this whole camera uniqueness, you know, all these different options and different ways of working, well, that can be a lot of fun. That also brings with it this like period of time where you have to relearn what you're doing. And this gets even worse with something like large format, where there's so many different steps, but there will be this period of time where you're pulled away from the image making process a little bit or a lot, because you're focusing on the camera itself and how to use it. And this is gonna depend on which type of camera you choose. You know, with a TLR or something, the big one is using something like a waist level finder where everything's moving backwards. Let's say with something like an RB67, you know, there's this process to like cock the shutter and the mirror and then advance the film. And it's just like this different way of working that all of a sudden, you know, if you're used to shooting with like a 35mm SLR that has a program mode, you're probably just like completely focused on the image making process because it's so intuitive to use the tool. So just something to keep in mind. Again, it's not a negative. It is something that over time you will get used to and it will become second nature. But it is something that will take some time. And depending on the type of work you do, may just not be a fit. You know, if you wanted to go and use, if you like using an SLR, say for street photography, and instead you go to use a TLR, it might just not work for you because the way you use the camera just might not inspire you. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about just briefly, this is something we talked about in the benefits, the image quality, but it is important to keep in mind as well what you actually need out of your image when it comes to, say, resolution. So again, you know, there are these inherent differences that are going to be visible regardless of the image size, you know, so like smoother tones, finer grain, depending on the format and the lens choice, different looks and things like that compared to 35. But it is easy to kind of get wrapped up in like, oh, you know, 6x7, I could scan it this big, or 4x5 or whatever, but you might really not ever need that at all. So, you know, let's say you're just planning on doing books or smaller prints, 35mm is going to be more than enough from a resolution standpoint to do that type of work and get very, very nice results out of it. So again, not a negative at all. I personally like shooting with a larger format, even if in the like near future, I'm only using it for like smaller resolution prints because it's almost like future proofing. And I know if I wanted to take something from a project in the future and print it really large, I'd be able to do that. But just important to be like really kind of honest with yourself about what you might actually need out of your images. Okay, so that wraps up some of the benefits and also some of the challenges. And you know, those last ones we talked about, the challenges, again, none of them are necessarily bad things. They're just important to keep in mind if you're jumping into this or if you are already into this. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is just choosing the tool and the format that suits you best for whatever output you need, and also just for your way of working. You know, what's going to fit you best and just allow you to go and make the images that you want to make and that you need to make, and also which tool just inspires you. That could be, you know, one, that could be multiple. It's going to be different for everyone. So if you do want to try out medium format, have some fun with it, give yourself time, and just know that you don't have to, like, it might not be for you and you don't have to stick with it. 35 is still an amazing format and is going to be very capable for most uses. I hope this video helped as well answer some questions. Thank you for watching. If you have any other questions, leave them below. I'll try my best to answer them. And other than that, just want to say thank you as always, and I'll talk to you soon.